everyone. Today I'm very glad I got Jennifer, one of my long-term friend. She's owner of Addicted to ROI, and as well as a slew of other successful business. Um, Jennifer, what do you do, or what do you not do? I love it that she's starting multiple different businesses, and that there's always these creative ideas and the connection that she makes. Welcome, Jennifer, today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited to chat with you. So yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
that's awesome. Jennifer, I was dying to have this interview with you all the time because I just amazed at the productivities that you're able to kind of achieve. And the fact that like we travel together sometimes, and I see you not like working day and night on things. So the ability to kind of be removed from your business is just amazed. I'm just amazed with that. So I'm very glad to be able to interview you today. Now, can you take us back a little bit more about your kind of upbringing, what kind of brings you into this like entrepreneur spirits, and tell us a little bit about like what your business, main business. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in rural Stanwood, Washington. So we lived on 40 acres out in the country. And
Wow.
I am a third generation small business owner. So
Wow.
yeah. And actually I might be fourth generation. My grandfather grew up during the Great Depression in South Carolina and Mississippi. His parents were farmers. So at that point, the family, there was multiple children and everyone worked on the farm. They implemented the barter system at that point in the Great Depression. I remember at one point he was telling me that there was a year where they did not see more than $1 come through the household. So they had to get very creative with, growing certain crops and trading those crops for flour and goods and things like that. So he went on to start multiple businesses, and he also invested in commercial real estate. So that's kind of where I got the real estate bug, was really kind of following my grandfather and kind of watching his business success, and then also his personal success with commercial real estate. My parents started their own business when I was born. So my mother was in retail, and my dad has a very similar kind of personality to me. He did not take well to a traditional 9 to 5. He's very independent, very much like a free thinker. Anyways, he pursued his passion of being a wildlife and nature photographer,
Oh,
and
wow.
so yeah, of all things.
Yeah.
My grandfather was actually in the manufacturing business. They manufactured airplane parts for Boeing. So he actually was at one time the largest employer in Snohomish County, which is where I live.
Wow.
Um, yeah,
And
so
that's your
great.
grandfather.
This
Yeah.
is my grandfather.
Nice.
Yes, yes. And so my parents started their own kind of retail business and also small business selling my dad's photography work at like festivals and in stores. And so when I grew up, it was really fun. The summertime as a family, I was selling his pictures. So
Wow.
yeah. And so I
How old
was,
were you when you did that?
oh gosh, I mean, well, they started the business when I was born. And
Okay.
so I remember being really young, and my mom was kind of like, putting the pictures together, like, framing them and putting
Yeah.
them in,
Matting them.
mats
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I was there doing the ABCs and doing math, kind of like they converted our family garage into their little workshop. And so I
Nice.
was sitting there in their workshop, learning while my mom was doing the photos. And then, yeah, on the weekends and the summers as a family, we would stay in hotels and then work these like weekend arts festivals.
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah. So what
and
was your
so,
job for
yeah,
in the arts festival?
I mean, everything. So I, made receipts, I took the money in, and I, of course, gave change. I was the stock girl. So when a photograph sold, I would have to go and replenish it. I greeted the people that would come up and kind of tell them my dad's story. And I loved it. I mean, it was so exciting. I'm not sure. I think it was, obviously I was very proud, right? I was very proud of, kind of showcasing my dad's work and being there, kind of supporting our family. So I love that. And then just interacting with people, and meeting different people and kind of, just, and then seeing the money come in.
Yes. So I was gonna say, do you feel the rush when you like sold a photographer, like sold one of these pictures, you know? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I learned a lot from that experience too, though. So what I recognized kind of from an early age was that every time they sold a photo, they would have to then like go back to work to reproduce one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of realized, like how can I do something similar but not have to be working all the time? Because my parents worked a lot. They worked very long hours, into the nights. They got up early, and because again, they were constantly in like sales and production.
Right.
So the more that they sold, the more they had to reproduce. And and I remember like my mom ending it, like she hired some of the older neighbor kids to like help her out and things like that. But I experienced them working a lot. And so for me, as you had said, right, you see me, kind of running a business, but not working all the time.
Right.
Because I kind of learned that early on. It's like, okay, so how can I produce an income or right. So like my focus is how can I make more money when I'm sleeping than actually like actively working in the business.
Right. Yeah. And then that's like a really important, hence, I guess, addicted to ROI, where you're not working. I guess that's the bracket, right? Where you're actually not working in the business. That's amazing. So to your experience, you think that kind of upbringing, the fact that you're helping them, first of all, there's the role model that kind of help you realize there's life outside of 9 to 5. Let me ask you this. Is anybody in your family actually do work 9 to 5? Like, does that even come across, or like, is that like just not an option even when you grow up? Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I have to think. I mean, obviously we have, like aunts and uncles and like extended family that work regular jobs, but no, I mean, the people that I paid most attention to have the freedom of choice, the freedom to where to spend their time. But I mean, my parents, they're in their 60s now, and they own a retail store. And so they do work in that retail store, but of course, they have the option to show up or not.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Now, the grandpa story is really fascinating too. So these two are different grandfather, right? Like the Boeing manufacturer and the farmer are kind of like a different.
So
the same.
So the farmers, that was his parents. So that would be my great grandparents that I never was able to meet. But so my grandfather is 89 years old. And and we were very, very close. So actually, I need to put a call into him today and have some conversations because he's experienced. He grew up in the Great Depression. Of course, he lost his business in I think it was the late 70s, early 80s. Due to the loan crisis and all of that, the interest rates, the inflation. Then he was able to build it back up. And he did quite well in commercial real estate. And then I believe he lost, I think he said $2 million in 1 week after 9/11.
Wow. Is that the paper money or is it actual money? Because,
of course. Yes, of course. The stock market, that's paper money, of course. But he did take a substantial loss in after 9/11. But his commercial real estate always remained steady. So that really kind of got him through.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome. And then you venture into commercial real estate as well, and currently. That's really good to have, essentially kind of like a Warren Buffett caliber of advisors on your board with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool, awesome. So now tell me a little bit about now kind of fast forward a little bit. You went to college or not went to college? Like tell us a little bit about your journey on like
Yeah.
starting the business that you have. Yeah.
Yep. So, I was kind of quote unquote employed by my parents since probably age, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, right?
Okay. You're right. For
uh,
the art stuff. Yeah.
yeah, wasn't paid accordingly. No.
Yeah.
So yeah. So and then in the summers, when I was older, I would do work for them. And my mom, they were very smart people. So my mom would ask me, would I rather be paid by the hour or in like piecework, right? And so I always
Yeah.
chose to be paid either by project or in piecework, because I realized the faster I could work, the more I could make, and then I could go and spend time with my friends and hang out, things like that.
Yeah.
So I was earning an income from a really young age, and then I got my first official 9 to 5 job when I was 15 years old, and at that time you could only work certain hours and things like that. But I
Yeah.
was a busser at Alfie's Pizza. And I
Okay.
believe that everyone should experience, especially, young people should experience,
Mm.
service work at some point. There's so much that can be learned by serving people in customer service. So I got that job when I was 15. And then I also got a job at a local fast food restaurant. So I always had at least one job, if not two. And
Yeah.
I did kind of early college. So in my senior year in high school, I did part-time high school, part-time college. I was studying international business and trade. And then I also was thinking that maybe I would pursue a law degree. So I was
Okay.
doing community college for a little bit, mostly just so I could kind of figure out what types of classes I wanted to take.
Yeah.
And then I was working 2 jobs. So I moved out of my parents' house when I was exactly 18 years old,
Yeah.
and started working, on my own again, multiple jobs. And
Wow.
then, and then I quit college. I realized that I didn't have the patience, or I didn't like that, you had to take certain prerequisite courses in order to get to the next course. I just wanted to pick and choose which
Right.
kind of courses. And
Yeah.
so I realized that college wasn't right for me. And so I decided to pursue gaining as much knowledge and intelligence as I could in small businesses. So I
Yeah.
worked primarily for small companies, for small businesses.
Nice.
And my intention was to become indispensable. So it was, I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to get really close with the owner and
Yeah.
add value and then learn from them. And
Yeah.
and then I've owned multiple kind of small businesses through the years.
Yeah.
My first kind of venture into owning my own business was in 2007. I decided I wanted to be a loan officer. And so I was pursuing, kind of a lender's license. And then at the time got really turned off with the way they were doing loans and structuring loans
Yeah.
and the compensation behind that. And so,
Tell us a
uh,
little bit more about what part's gonna turn you off there.
yeah. Well, there was a push for adjustable rate mortgages. And the push was that there was a higher compensation for any loan
Uh-huh.
officer that would push for an adjustable rate mortgage as opposed to a fixed mortgage product. And so at
Okay.
the time, I was working with friends and family. And of
Yeah.
course, I thought this is not right to push friends and family into an adjustable rate mortgage because we don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen in the market, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be involved in an industry where compensation is related to you know
Not the right thing.
put, right,
Yeah.
and putting our friends and family into a higher risk situation.
Right.
So I got out of that, but that showed me that I had an interest in real estate. And so when I was
Mm.
21 years old, I was working 2 jobs. I was working in an espresso. I was a manager of an espresso stand, working from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then I'd go home and take a couple hour nap. And then I would be a server at a restaurant in the evenings. And so I
Yeah.
saved up a lot of money. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and we purchased a property in 2007. So I
Okay.
was 21 years old. And I realized that I really liked real estate. I liked the process of going through that. I also noticed that the real estate agent made $7,500
Wow. Yes.
for showing us
Yeah.
one house. And so at that point, after closing, I said, okay, I quit both of my jobs and said I want to get into real estate.
Yeah.
And so I got hired for a local builder developer and started
Gotcha.
learning that business.
And so for someone who's doing, it sounds like you were very fiercely in terms of like getting a job, just changing careers, right? Like there's
Mhm.
the mom and pop shops that you like literally mom and pop for the arts work. And then you quit like at 18 years old. And then you were doing servers and restaurant jobs. And then just kind of tee back a little bit, you were saying that everybody should be working a service job. Like what is
Yeah.
this like a big learning that you kind of got? Like, because everybody's all like,
Yep.
oh, because all of us, like at teenage age, we worked at some pizza shop. In fact, I worked for a Pizza Hut one time, like
Yeah.
server jobs. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I quickly realized that the better that you treat people, the higher tips you would earn, right?
Yeah, yeah. So commission based. Yeah, yeah. So
Right.
service is kind of like a big lesson that you learn over there. Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. And then I
yeah,
think even just, of course, there were regulars. And so if I remembered their names, if I greeted them immediately as they came in and,
yeah,
immediately went to them and asked if they wanted their, regular order, things like that, I realized that, those kind of skills and like working with people and serving people and knowing how to treat people,
yeah.
that goes a long way in any kind of industry, in any kind of business.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And so then you kind of switched off to college and doing this and that. So did you had a bigger picture in your mind, like when you went to college and you're like, this is what I want to do, or it's more exploratory, kind of like an entrepreneur, how you're thinking about stuff like let's try things out and see what I like, what I don't like, and go from there and pivot. Yeah,
Yeah, it was absolutely more exploratory at that point. I didn't really have an end goal or an end game in mind, aside from the fact that I wanted to learn as much as I could, and
yeah,
then save my money and figure out a way to either invest in a small business, own a small business, or make investments in real estate. So like
yeah.
that was just like I'm just going to figure this out.
So that's also an amazing point in your journey too. I want to kind of dig into a little bit more because you're working on these jobs. Because people are like, well, I work in server business. You really don't make a lot over there, aside from you're probably super nice and they give you a big tip, right? But like, how did that like saving kind of look at? Like, walk us
Yeah.
through a little bit, like how you kind of be able to save up. Yeah.
Yeah. So the paychecks were not very good. I was making minimum wage, but I was bringing in anywhere from like 150 to $300 a day in tips.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you must
As
be
a
very good at customer service. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously you're working two jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I was working 16-hour days,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but when you're young, and again, that I was all in on my own success, right? So I had
Yeah.
quit college. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to go all in, and just kind of invest in myself and, learn what I think I need to learn in order to succeed in life and in business. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so I was able to save a ton of money. I mean, $300, 150 to $300 a day in just tips.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money for a 21-year-old.
Yeah, definitely. Shoot, like I should probably quit my job and go work in the server industry now. Although it's probably not a good time right now. And so then tell us a little bit about how did you like transition into a loan office? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people have this challenge, another mentality thing of, hey, like I've never had an experience being loan officer, right?
Yep.
Like coming switching from a minimum wage job. How did you get that accomplished? Yeah.
Yeah. So I am obsessed with learning. And I figure, so I think sometimes people feel like they need to know everything in order to succeed or in order to even start selling. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's incorrect. I think that obviously surrounding yourself with the right people who can be a resource and who can help. I mean, obviously, we don't want to be not taking care of people, right? We want to make sure
Right.
that we're doing the right thing. But if you're
Right.
I mean, even so, when I transitioned into becoming a real estate agent, I
Yeah.
didn't know it all.
Yeah.
I didn't. But you know what? I focused on what I did know, and I made sure that I surrounded myself with, I had two agents that I worked with really closely that had been in the business for over 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And so I would be honest with my clients. I would say, look, I don't know the answer to that question. However, I happen to work with an agent that has been in the business for 20 years,
Yeah.
and I can get that answer for you, or we could bring her in and deal with the situation. Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so is it relationships that how did you got into, like, I guess you were agent first and then you were starting your own office business. So how did you become an agent? Like obviously there's a
Yeah.
real estate test that you're taking, but after you take all these tests, like I think there's a thing that people are talking about, like 80% of the deal is transacted by 20% of the agent or less, right?
Yep.
It's very true in any industry. So like how did you kind of got into become a real estate agent? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did the loan officer thing for a few months in 2007, and then I
Okay.
quit that. And then I went to work again, 9 to 5 for the builder developer.
Okay.
And in that experience, I learned all about estimating construction costs and rehabbing. I learned all about project management, and I learned about, figuring out what the after completion value was on projects.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I came with a lot of knowledge and skills that the average agent does not have. I
Okay.
mean, the average agent does it, and also figuring out like rentability, like what would this property rent for, and things like that. So I got my real estate license in May of 2009. And the
Okay.
sole purpose for getting that real estate license was that I could then let myself into properties so that I could then buy them personally and also use the commission as part of my down
Mm.
payment. So I
Yeah.
had no intention of actually selling real estate. And then when I got my real estate license, I actually ended up selling like 6 properties in
Oh
that
wow.
first year. And
Yeah.
again, this was on the side. So I was working full time for a builder, 9 to 5. And then after hours, I was doing tenant placement for them, for that builder. And then
Okay.
I was selling houses to friends and family after that. So, and then I think I
Wow.
was also working at an espresso stand on the weekend. So I
Oh,
essentially had
still
4
working at
jobs.
the job. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
All right. So for the transition though, I was just very honest with people. And I said, I am brand new to real estate. However, again, happen to work in an office with a ton of experienced agents. And by
Yeah.
the way, I can help you estimate what a renovation cost might be, what the rent might be for this property,
Yeah.
what it'll be worth after you're done. And people really took to that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of have always been like the anti-salesperson, which is also, by the way, a sales strategy.
Right. And then it's probably going back to your service background, right? That kind of
Absolutely.
bring it in. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I quit in December 31st, 2009 was the last time I ever had a 9 to 5 job. So it's been a very long time for me.
Yeah. That's great.
Um, and so at that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to sell real estate full time, and I'm going to focus on working with investors because I just had the skills and knowledge to do so. And I realized I didn't have any listings as a real estate agent. So in order to get listings, I realized that I had the skills and knowledge of how to build houses. So my
Okay.
first 5 listings were actually houses that I had built and put together for an investor group. And that's what we did. They
Nice.
trusted me to raise the capital to do so. And so that was kind of my early start as a real estate agent, was actually in building and overseeing the project management of houses
Right.
and then getting the list backs on those.
Yeah, and then now to mention that you also raised the money for them to build the thing. At some
Yeah.
point, did you realize like you could actually do this all, like, and then just cut out the middleman there? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just buildings, right? It's not a big deal. Just kidding.
Well, I think that sometimes people underestimate the knowledge and skills that they have.
Yeah,
Right. And so, Elisa, you and I know, right? It's the person that has the knowledge and skills and can find the deal. That is the most valuable, right?
right.
That, money, to raise money is quite easy, right? It's very simple.
Yeah,
Those people typically don't have the time and or the knowledge. And so when you can align and create a win-win situation where you're lining up somebody who has, the knowledge, the skill set, and the deal with
right.
people who want to earn a return on their capital, that's a beautiful thing when you can put that
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, definitely. So now you went through the down cycle from last, down cycle. Like you mentioned that you kind of quit your job in 2009, started on your own over there. That's kind of like in the middle of the recession because I think the recession hit about 2008, and with real estate, it's a little slower hitting. So
Yep.
2009 is still very much on the bottom. But you were able, because a lot of agent I know was out of business at that point. But you were able to actually have new listings, and then finding different creative ways to raise money because everybody is kind of like, we don't want to spend any money. So do you have some tips? Like, what were you doing there that
Yeah.
was kind of successful to help you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I noticed that a lot of the agents, they were either digging their head in the sand or they were getting out of the business. And mostly because I think that they were not prepared and also not willing to pivot and shift. I
Yeah.
saw a huge opportunity to serve people that were well capitalized, that
Yeah.
wanted to take advantage of the inexpensive properties and also low interest rates. And so
Right.
I just went about serving those people. I've never spent money on marketing. I have never had to like put myself out there as far as, hey, this is me. I mean, people just came to me. Now, one thing I did do is I partnered with an REO agent. So
Okay.
an agent friend of mine was getting REO listings and she was getting blown up with
What
buyer
is
calls.
REO listing?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a REO stands for real estate owned. So that was an
Okay.
agent that was hired by the bank in order to sell these properties and
Ah,
liquidate these
okay.
properties.
Oh yeah.
And so she would pass along all of the buyer inquiries to me
Mm-hmm.
because the majority of her properties were major fixer uppers, cash only, kind of quick close sort of deal.
Yeah.
So I would field those calls. And most those people were investors. So I
Yeah.
got a lot of business and clientele. I would even hold like investor open houses,
Okay. Yeah. So
which
everybody
was,
comes and look at it. Yeah.
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 And again, I focused on adding value. So for
Uh-huh.
me, people thought it was, because there was a lot of agents trying to do a lot of things, but agents didn't have the knowledge and skill set that I did, which was I could walk through a house and say, all right, this is about 15 grand to turn around. And when
Right.
you're done, it's going to rent for 2 grand.
Yeah.
And clients then started to be attracted to me and come to me and say, well, wait a second, I want to work with you
Right.
because you
Right.
have all this knowledge that other agents either are unwilling to get or just don't have. So it was
Yeah.
very easy for me to build a huge investor database. And then I was constantly looking for ways to serve them. So in addition to, sharing like bank owned properties, I would attend the foreclosure auction every single Friday and bid on
Mhm.
behalf of my clients. And
Yeah.
so at its worst, there were up to 300 properties per week in my county that were getting auctioned off.
Wow. Yeah. And then we may be seeing one of these events again, possibly opportunities coming around again. Don't know. Never know the future, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. And so kind of like I think there's a lot of underlining things. So I'm gonna dig in a little bit deeper over here. So you somehow found a relationship that you start working with the developer, right? And you somehow find a relationship, and you start working with the REO sales, basically REO
Mhm.
agent. Where do you find these people, or
I
how
mean,
did you
they're
find them?
I mean, they're out there. I think having the ability to network with people, and I think also anticipating the needs of others, I think has served me really well. So I a lot of times kind of like take a pause and think about what is the average person thinking right now, and then
Yeah,
how can I deliver a message to them quickly that
yeah,
is probably going to answer or solve the problem that they're thinking, that no other small business owner or no other agent or whatever it is thinking in that
thinking
direction.
about
They're
it.
thinking about themselves, right?
Yeah,
So I've always had like a servant mentality. It's probably just because I
yeah,
started in service, right? Is
yes,
I quickly realized if I could see patterns in human behavior, with people even that were just coming into the restaurant, right? I mean,
yeah,
if you, you can notice patterns and then
right,
anticipate what the person might need, and even if you're wrong, they're going to appreciate that you thought about them or asked, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I like to kind of read behavior and try to read
Yeah.
between the
Yeah.
lines and try to figure out, what does this person need? And then how can I deliver that to them and add value to them?
Yeah. Yeah. So in like walk us back to like how exactly where exactly you met your developer.
Well, yeah, they had a job on Craigslist, right? And so
Oh, okay.
I had determined
You just
that I was.
answered. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was interviewing, I decided that I wanted to work for a developer, right? So I was
Yeah.
interviewing for quite a few builders.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, I don't know, they kind of asked the regular questions that everyone, oh, what do you do in your free time?
Yeah.
What's interesting to you, whatever. And so of course I am interviewing at a developer law, right? So I'm thinking,
Yeah.
well, of course I'm going to tell them that I'm rehabbing this house and I'm loving the process and I'm learning through this and I'm learning how to create budgets and estimates and I understand what the building costs are from Home Depot. That's going to resonate with them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And
yeah.
then so Craigslist is where you met that. And then where did you met like the REO? Like walk us back like it was just random like from referral or
Yeah, so it was a friend of a friend. Yep.
oh good.
And so literally
Awesome.
I was just going around to all of the agents in the office saying, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? I shouldn't say all the agents. I was going to the most experienced agents that
Yeah.
had the most business.
Yeah.
And I knew that they, at the time, maybe didn't have the desire or capital to bring on other agents. And so I
Yeah.
just said, hey, like, can I just field calls for you and then give you referral fees if I close anything?
Yeah.
And they were like, absolutely. We're
Yeah.
ignoring all these calls anyway.
Yeah.
So again, I saw opportunity. I mean, and same thing with the raising capital for building. I
Yeah.
realized that a lot of builders, at the time, the construction lenders were actually taking away loans that had already given draws for. So our
Yeah.
first few projects actually had foundations in the ground. So permits
Mhm.
were done, plans were engineered, foundations were in the ground, and then the bank told the builder, um, we're stopping this loan, right? And so that
Yeah.
immediately
Yeah.
put the builder in hardship. And
Right.
so I was able to basically kind of mitigate that, right? And
Right.
negotiate a
Right.
short sale. The builder was able to win in that, and then we were able to finish that project off.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. So it's kind of like a really problem solver with the problem that you have, and then let me help you with this. That's
Absolutely.
amazing. Because I would say this, because knowing you, Jennifer, personally, you're like kind of like the mega connector. There's so many people I have met. There's many opportunities that you have enabled me because all these connections that you have. This kind of goes into delivering value. Where of course when there's an opportunity, the first thing I think about is like, can I get Jennifer looped in here,
Yep.
right? That's awesome. Now, like, walk us a little bit back. I guess now you have your new agent. So at some point, you probably left your firm and opened your own agents who invest.
Yep.
I think that was a company that you have created.
Yep.
Like, tell us a little bit about that. Like the initial, how did you get the funding? Like, how did you get the stuff started? And then also getting to the hiring. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a detail that I left out. So I'll kind of shore that up. So I got licensed in 2009, and from 2009 till about 2016, I was working as a real estate agent. Earning commissions from selling properties to primarily investors. Along the way, though, I knew that I didn't want to become an agent or be selling real estate forever. So my husband and I had been investing in cash flowing real estate properties, real property, this entire way, right? So we
Where
realized,
did this husband come in?
yeah, he came in. So he came into my life in 2007. And the great thing is he has the same work ethic as I do, if
And
not.
how did you met him? Because I mean, like, you're so busy, you're practically working like sleeping and just working, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, I want to say by referral. No. So yeah, through mutual friends.
Right.
And so he had he had kind of a different, I think, path that he wanted to be on than me.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. What
I
was that?
converted. Yeah, he was making a very good income as a union operator.
Oh
So
wow.
he was making about 6 figures a year in the construction industry,
Wow. Yeah.
and yeah, and so he liked nice things, and he was a bit of a spender. And then I was able to get him convinced that we could take the extra capital and the extra money that we were making and invest in properties, which would allow him then to not work in construction. So in about 5 years, he was able to, quote unquote, retire early from construction.
Yeah.
So, and that's because our real estate investments. So simultaneously, I was building a business and then also investing in real estate on the side so that I could eventually exit the business and have this portfolio that could pay us. However, I realized that I wanted to continue growing some kind of business. I just didn't want to actively participate because at that point we had had a child in 2014. And so I realized, okay, now is the time to continue doing what I'm doing, but in a different way. So, so how
you
that
can
looked,
be working 16 hours a day, with a child. Yes,
right, yes, and it's just, and honestly, I think we go through seasons in our life where it makes sense to work a lot, and then, but if you continue that, it's just not healthy, right? It's not good. So, so anyway, so in 2016, we were working, of course, I was working with a lot of investors. We had our own rental properties and the deals just weren't what they used to be, right? So the recession was far over, prices had significantly gone up. And I had the desire to invest out of state. And so me being the solutions-oriented person that I am, I realized that it was very, very frustrating as an investor based in Seattle to figure out how to invest out of state. It's kind of like, where do you start? Which city do you go to? Then, okay, you pick some cities. Who do you work with? How do you find a property manager? How do you renovate out of state? There was I couldn't find any real resources that were legit for finding agents and for finding, property managers. So I had this idea and I said, gosh, I'm sitting on a lot of capital personally. I have a lot of investors that are also well capitalized. The deals just aren't here in Seattle. How could I somehow serve investors and help investors while also creating a business opportunity out of this? And so we started in Indianapolis and then also in Spokane, Washington. And I basically just put an investment team together. So I found real estate agents that were investment savvy, property managers. Property managers came with handyman. And we just started trying it out. So we would refer clients to our partners in other cities, and then we would earn a referral commission from that. And it worked out really well. The investors were thrilled to have the opportunity to now work with people that I had already worked with and I had already vetted. And so that saved them a massive amount of time and learning curve and pain and struggles with that. And then on the other hand, our agent partners were like, this is amazing. We would have never had the access to these investors that you are now connecting us with. And then I was happy too, because I was like, well, wait a second. So my investors are happy, my agent partners are happy. And then I was able to get compensated for making these connections that I've always made over the years anyway.
And you don't really have capital at risk either at that point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so there's kind of two things to that. Of course, one, now we're able to help families and people who could not afford to buy properties in Seattle invest through our agents network in other cities and acquire properties and do really well. So, Cody is probably my best example. My friend Cody, as of, I think, September of 2018, he had 26 units. And now through our agent partners, he's acquired an additional 55 units. So he has, over 80 units in a short period of time just by working through our network. So that's phenomenal. So there's a couple of things, again, to that. The investors are winning. It makes great business. I've been able to now employ additional people to work for Agents Invest, our brokerage company, as we created jobs from that. And then our agent partners are thriving and doing really, really well. There was a situation, one of my mentors, agent friends, back from 2009, she actually passed away from alcoholism.
Oh, wow.
That was in, I think it was about 2011, because she could not handle, she wasn't able to pivot. She wasn't able to, kind of build the business back up after the recession. So that's very important to me, that I can also support agents in a time of need and give them the knowledge and the skill sets on how to work with investors, because investors are going to buy when the market is good, and they're going to buy when the market's bad, right?
Yeah.
Because they understand that investing in buy and hold multifamily properties is for the long term. They're investing in real assets, income producing assets that are leveraged with extremely low interest rates that are, at or about what the level of inflation is, right?
Yeah.
And people need to live somewhere. So anyway, so it's been an amazing opportunity for us to, again, serve investors, save them time, save them the struggle and the effort of putting their own teams together and also figuring out markets, and then also allowing our agent partners to really build their business.
Awesome. And then, so you also have the side business of Addicted to ROI.
Yeah.
How did you get that started? Yeah.
Yeah. So what we realized is, of course, experienced investors could come into our network and immediately work with agents, and everything was perfect, right? So they were super happy.
Yeah.
But the newer investors were like, well, wait a second, I don't understand the BRRRR strategy, which is the buy, renovate, rent, and refinance. And I don't really know how to get started. So we realized that there was an opportunity to also educate and provide content to newer investors so that they could build their own, rental portfolios.
Yeah.
So Addicted to ROI is really our investor community. We do group investor trips. We spend an entire weekend in one of our markets with our investor teams. And, we network and spend an entire weekend together and go and look at properties. We have an online course as well for people that can go through. It's 4 weeks of content related to understanding the financing, the due diligence, the deal analysis, all of that. And then we also do master classes and webinars. So that's kind of like our events and education and, and all things.
Kind of arm, and they all different separate business, but what they call parallel the business. So they kind of all feed each other. Yeah, that's very smart.
Absolutely.
Now, the part I was really interested in is because we've been on the trip together. I saw that you basically had just a couple hour work preparing your slides or whatnot, but the rest of the time you were able to kind of hang out and talk to people. So how were you, what was your first experience hiring a first hire? And then what you've been doing with your business so that you're not working in there? Because I'm still trying to figure out, I'm working quite a bit of time. There's more time that I like to spend with my kids. But it seems like you got it all. Yeah.
Yep. Yes. So I am very much into systems and processes, and anything that doesn't scale or is really challenging to scale, or that I may be the bottleneck in, I find an opportunity to either put a person in place to handle that, or put a system or process in place.
Yeah.
And truly, so 2019, our family traveled for 16 weeks. So we spent 16 weeks on the road traveling I think we went to maybe 8 or 13 countries, I don't remember. And I realized that the more that we traveled, the better that I got at business, because I was forced to. Yeah. Right. So we had to. So as far as hiring people, I think sometimes it can be a challenge because I move very, very fast, and I have a pretty big bandwidth. And I think it's mostly because I'm incredibly passionate about what we do.
And the 16 hours a day in the past has trained you for you're like, this is nothing, Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good and bad. Because, both my husband and I got so used to that it almost felt weird. It was like we didn't know what to do when we weren't working. So there's good and bad to that. But so I have a lot of bandwidth and energy for this business and passion for the business. So I do have to recognize that what I may be able to produce in a day is not necessarily what an employee or somebody that works for me could produce in a day as well.
Right.
So I've had to be very kind of mindful of that. But as far as as far as on the business side, independent contractors, I think, are a phenomenal opportunity where, you can kind of mitigate some of the risk in that, provided that they qualify as an independent contractor. So that's important. And then I think the next thing also is I've always been about investing in the business, in order to grow. Right. Yeah. So, I think that's the other thing, obviously, as an individual, we have a lot of investment opportunities. We can do the stock market, we can do real estate, we can do a lot of different things. But small
Hmm.
business probably has the highest returns if you really, really think
Right.
about it.
Right.
You can put $100 into a small business and easily get 150, 250 or more back.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of been also like very lean on the business side, right? So I don't, hire big marketing companies and things like that. Like we try to do everything in house as much as we can
Yeah.
through our team. But yeah, I think it's very important also to have help because then it can kind of free you up as the business owner to
Yeah.
implement ideas and execute and set the vision.